about creating a culture of trust on your team. Maybe you're a pastor leading a staff or a team of volunteers. Maybe you lead a small group in your home, or maybe you just want to get better at leading your family. Trust is the critical ingredient to the health of that team. An absence of trust can cause all kinds of problems on a team. Pat Lencioni wrote a famous book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he said that the foundation of all of the dysfunctions that a team could have is an absence of trust. And when there's an absence of trust, group members are going to do a number of different behaviors. People with an absence of trust will start to conceal their weaknesses and mistakes from everyone else because they're so insecure. Sometimes they'll hesitate to ask for help or provide constructive feedback. Or they'll hesitate to go outside of their comfort zone to help other people, or they'll jump to conclusions about the intentions or the motivations of another team member without attempting to clarify what's really going on. Or they'll fail to tap into other people's skills and experiences, again, because of insecurity and a lack of trust. Or they'll hold grudges against another team member, or they'll start to dread meetings and find reasons to avoid spending time with other people from the team. These are all signs that your team is becoming dysfunctional, and it won't function at its greatest capacity without the presence of trust. Let's talk about what are some steps to create a culture of trust. The first thing you need to do is to build real relationships. Like, people long for a leader who knows them, who understands where they're coming from, who cares for them outside of the formal environment of the team. So build real relationships. Second is to learn to be a listener. Trust is built when people feel safe to share, when their input is seen to be valuable. And so trust is going to happen when you create an environment where you're not always the one talking, but you spend quality, significant time listening. The third step is to encourage people often. Like, think back to about the powerful impact that someone may have had in your past who spoke a word of encouragement to you. A word of encouragement can be the difference between somebody hanging in there and somebody giving up. It's a powerful thing. Finally, a culture of trust is built when you provide personal care. The old adage says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's old and it's a little cheesy, and it's really true. Like, you can have a major impact when some life event happens outside of your formal team environment, and a team member is on the receiving end of your care. One of the keys to establishing trust is to build real relationships. And so let's explore, how can a leader build real relationships with team members? Well, Jesus showed us how important real relationships were. It's where he started with his disciples. Mark 3:14 says, "And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might," listen, "be with him, and that he might send them out to preach." So before he assigned them tasks, he invited them into his presence. The first priority for Jesus was relationships. We see it again at the very end of his ministry at the Last Supper in John 15:15, where he said these remarkable words. He said, "No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you." You know, people long for a leader who seeks to understand them, who understands who they are as a person outside of the formal team environment. And building real relationships takes time. But I would encourage you as a leader to use some of your group time to get to know people one-on-one, even create some time outside of the formal group environment to ask the kind of questions of your team members like this. Like, understand their spiritual journey. How did they come to Christ? How did they come to your church? Who has been influential in their faith journey? Then understand their life story. Like, what was their family life like growing up? What did they celebrate along the way? What did they grieve along the way? How did they handle conflict? You know, what were some of the major turning points of their life? And then just understand their heart. Like, what brings them joy? What makes them sad? What do they dream about? Being in real relationships with your team members is one of the ways to build trust. If being a good listener is one of the ways to build trust, then let's consider, what are some tricks of the trade for being a good listener? James 1:19 talks about the importance of listening. He says, "Let every person be quick to hear and slow to speak and slow to anger." So what are some tips of the trade? Well, listen, the first is very simple and straightforward. It's just to talk less. The less you are talking, the more space you provide for listening. Another trick is to ask good open-ended questions. And an open-ended question is simply a question that can't be answered with a yes or no answer. Another one is to ask for clarification. So when that team member is communicating something to you and it's not clear what they're trying to say, don't presume to know what they're trying to say or what's motivating them. Ask for clarification. Another trick is to keep the focus of the conversation on them. So resist the urge to use their story as a springboard to tell all of your interesting experiences. Only use your experiences sparingly and when it's going to actually help them and provide a growth edge for them. Another one is to fight the temptation to move too quickly to solutions. Sometimes we just want to solve people's problems when we're in a conversation, but seek to listen and to fully understand what they're saying. Another trick is to listen beyond their words. So pay attention to their body language, to their facial expressions, to their tone of voice, to their choice of words. These nonverbal clues can often give you insight to their unexpressed thoughts and feelings and struggles. Another one is to ask permission to move deeper. So ask them questions that will get beyond the surface conversation of what they're talking about and then offer an opportunity to share feelings and opinions and values. But ask permission before you go. Well, trust on a team involves encouraging people often. But in order to do that, we should probably establish what are the attributes of good encouragement. You know, people need encouragement to grow spiritually. Your encouragement could actually catalyze someone's growth. Mac Lake provides some great tips about how to encourage people well. He says encouragement is best when it's sincere. And so check your motives, make sure that your encouragement is sincere. You're not trying to get something from that person, but you're trying to offer encouragement to them. Proverbs 26:28 warns us that a flattering mouth works ruin. And ruin just means to push or to drive away or to cast down. And so these kind of insincere, flattering words can have the opposite effect of what you're trying to do when you encourage someone. Your encouragement should also be specific. Like look for specifics of what people did well and give them detailed feedback. That's the most helpful kind. Another key is to encourage people around their strengths. Make it strengths focused. So the Apostle Paul had been around young Timothy, his protege, for a long time, and so much that he became familiar with Timothy's strengths. And at a very crucial time in Timothy's ministry, Paul told him in a word of encouragement, fan into flame the gift of God. He knew his strengths and he encouraged him in his strengths. Finally, you can encourage people through shared leadership. So if you're leading a team or if you're leading a group or you're leading your family, one of the ways to encourage people is to involve them in leadership. Give them a piece of what you're trying to do. If you're in a life group in your home, for example, give some of your members the challenge of doing the snacks or doing the devotional or praying at the end. Shared leadership is a great way to encourage your team. Providing care outside the team environment may be one of the best ways to establish trust. But how can leaders provide care for those they lead? Well, inevitably, your group is going to go through a crisis. And I'm just convinced that God never wastes a hurt. That when someone is hurting, these moments can skyrocket the trust factor, the intimacy on your team. And so if you'll care for them with a call or a visit, or offer them a prayer, or serve them in some way, give them a meal, or offer to clean their house, or to provide childcare, these are powerful ways to extend care to a team member who's going through a personal crisis. Another way to increase the trust factor is to ask for care yourself, for you asking for help. It's a powerful thing to put yourself in a vulnerable position and can be a huge catalyst for building trust on your team. One of the most important things you can do as a leader when establishing a healthy team is to create a culture of trust. I hope these suggestions today will help you to do just that.